Alabama lost 0 players to the portal. What does that tell us?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. You dang right it is. And we want to thank you everydayers for being here every day. Thank you newbies for being here today. And thanks everybody for making us your first listen every single day. You guys are the absolute best. Jimmy, the portal has been a source of consternation for everybody. But, you know, Alabama lost 0 players to the portal in football in this last spring opening. But frankly, I still don't know all the rules to the portal. We could lose somebody today because they could sue the NCAA for the portal not being open or something. Who knows? But what does it say? And I really think it says a lot about Kaylan DeBoer. I do. I think that he's done a great job of rallying the troops and getting behind his vision. And yes, Alabama has lost some people. There's no doubt about that. But we knew we were going to lose some people when we had to change the way we did with Nick Saban. That right. Was inevitable. That was undeniable and unstoppable. So I think that not having any more losses after this, the spring practices and all this stuff, I think it says a lot. I think it's a huge positive for Kaylan DeBoer.
It really is. One of my mantras of this season or the DeBoer era so far is I like to say, just because I think it's a bumper sticker, but it's kind of accurate, that 2024 was about Jalen Milro and 2025 is about Kaylan DeBoer. And by that, what I mean is it's not a shot at Milro. I hope no one takes it that way. It's certainly not intended that way. What I meant was everything was brand new. The transition was going to be tough. It was going to be very difficult for all of the players, the ones that were still here, to learn a completely brand new offense and a completely brand new defense. That was a lot. It was a big ask. It was a massive culture change. The players signed up to play for the greatest coach of all time and ended up being coached by someone they did not know. And last year's success or fails was going to completely depend on how far Milro could take the team. And there was very mixed results and I say mixed results in the sense that there were big-time wins and big-time things. Jalen Milro during the season was discussed as a Heisman candidate and the number 1 pick in the draft because of when it went well. He was a National Player of the Week against LSU late in the year. So it went well. It also went badly at times. There were at least 2 regular season losses in which Jalen Milro played extremely poorly, and it became very difficult to win the game because of poor quarterback play heading the list, among other things. So I think 2024 was about Jalen and how far he could carry the team. Well, mixed results, missed the playoff by 1 spot. 2025 is about Kaylan DeBoer, and that's what Luke's talking about with the portal, I think, because the fact that no players left in this window, we were the only team in the SEC, by the way, not to lose a player. So don't think, oh, well, this is just, no one's leaving during the spring portal. No, there's 1,000 players in the portal. Not one player left Alabama. That's Alabama stands alone in the SEC as that happening. And that is a testament to what I say when I say that this is Kaylan DeBoer's football team. Last year, it really was Kaylan DeBoer coaching Nick Saban's team. All of the players from Saban that stayed behind, all of these kids that would have a bad day and not know which coach to text, Nick or Kalen. But this is Kaylan DeBoer's football team. The guys that have remained on the team that are on this roster, and by the way, it's 50-50. I mean, it's literally almost 50-50 in terms of how many players on this upcoming roster signed with Nick Saban and how many signed with Kaylan DeBoer. I'm going to be off by a couple, so don't hold me to exact numbers, but it's basically Saban signed about 40 and DeBoer signed about 42. But the 40 Saban signees, they've now had multiple opportunities to leave. Multiple. At least 3 off the top of my head, but I think it's 4. But they've had multiple windows to leave, and it is 4. And they stayed. So this is Kaylan DeBoer's team. Now, how is that going to reflect itself in the win-loss columns? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying it's going to be better. I don't know. I just know that last year felt like Nick Saban's team being coached by someone else. This year feels like this is Kaylan DeBoer's football team, and a better barometer for how well it's going is this fall, not last year.
You know, it's sort of like a substitute teacher who gets hired the next year to be a permanent teacher. You know, if you're a substitute teacher, you come in and the students sort of, they don't super respect you. Yeah, there are some that are like, they're raised right and they know, they're like, hey, a teacher is a teacher, is a power person, a person of authority, and I need to respect them until they give me a reason not to. But there's some who like, I want to see how far I can push this. You know, I want to see how far I can go with this, and then you know, I'll find my new line of demarcation. Well, now the substitute is officially the permanent teacher. I know Kaylan DeBoer was the permanent coach last year, but it had to feel like a substitute teacher situation for these kids. It had to a little bit. And so now he's made his mark. He's doing his thing. And I think the further away we get from Saban, not that it's a good thing because Nick Saban is the greatest to ever do it, but the better it is for DeBoer to do his own thing. And I think he's got some freedom. Just like I said with Jalen Milro, you know, ironically, it just dawned on me. Kaylan DeBoer comes from Washington. Jalen Milro goes to Washington from Tuscaloosa and the state of Washington. Now it's I think those long distances have helped both of them in a way. You know, Kaylan DeBoer needed some time to get acclimated, to figure out Tuscaloosa, to figure out the players. And Jalen Milro is going to need a little time in Washington to rediscover himself and get better. But in the end, I think this is going to be Kaylan DeBoer's team, and I think this says a lot. Look, he's always been a guy who's been big on loyalty, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that the players respect him for it.
Yeah, I think they like Kaylan DeBoer. They like him. I mean, if they didn't like him, we wouldn't have had this portal situation at all. And as far as like a good point you made there that sprung this point to mind for me is about how he's now in charge, and last fall it kind of felt like a substitute teacher. Can you imagine if a year ago, 3 months after he replaced Nick Saban, can you imagine if last year he said, hey, you know how y'all have had this 8A game for several decades? Yeah. Screw that. We're going to have a practice. We're just going to have a practice, and I don't care how many people show up. If he'd done that last year, it would have been a complete mess. Now he did this year. I expected a bigger mess than it was, I'll be honest, and saying I think there's going to be some fan blowback. I was correct in the sense that attendance was really sparse. I was correct in that. But I think there wasn't as much blowback because people recognize it's Kalen's program. Let him make the decisions. We're going to trust that he's doing the right thing, and that, hey, this is what Kaylan DeBoer wants, and this is what Kaylan DeBoer is going to get. It would have been really a messy thing last year. I don't even think, I need to look it up. I meant to this morning. You know, for also 100 years, we've given out spring practice awards, Leroy Jordan Headhunter Award, Jerry Duncan I Like to Practice Award, Best Walk On, that sort of thing. I don't think we did that this year. If we did, I missed it, which is crazy because I sort of stay in tune to what's going on with the program.
Well, it's kind of hard to have
roughly 23 hours a day
when you don't do much.
Didn't have an 8A game. Maybe that's why there wasn't an MVP. And I get that there wouldn't be an MVP of 8A, but you know, we have given out those, you know, Best Headhunter Award, Best Back, and
likes to practice, right?
Yeah. Jerry Duncan, I like, and they're all named after former, you know, Bryant players primarily. The Commitment to Excellence Award, Sylvester Croom, I think it's named after him. So, and maybe they'll get around to that, and maybe they've done it and I missed it. I just don't know how.
Think about this too.
I sort of don't take days off from following what's going on.
It just dawned on me. Remember when I think it was Ray Perkins came in, and didn't he immediately take down Bear Bryant's tower?
Yes.
And everybody was like,
we're still talking about it.
You could have at least like just left it there and not used it. And then quietly remove it later, and then somebody will say, "Oh, the tower's down." Oh, okay. But instead, you made a deal out of it.
He made a deal of it by removing it. Just a horrific PR mistake that we're still talking about to this
he
day.
Wasn't exactly the king of good media.
No, and I think he had to maybe send a message, hey, the Bryant era is over. Let's move forward. I suppose that's what that thinking was, but it was the wrong timing. Do it after you've been there a year or two, or why do it at all? Because, by the way, it's still there.
Plus, it was a little different because Bryant not only retired, he died. And so he was like, you're dishonoring him as a coach and his memory. Like Nick Saban just left. And so I could forgive Kaylan DeBoer for doing more things his way, coming in for Ray Perkins. He was like, I'm doing it this way, to hell with what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, that's okay. But also part of me is you can do it without dishonoring the memory of one of the greatest, now the second greatest coach of all time.
DeBoer has such a different personality. Could you imagine if someone suggested to Kaylan DeBoer right now, hey, that thing over there, that's Bryant's tower. Maybe you ought to take it down. DeBoer like, no, I'm not, no.
What he would never do that. DeBoer said, you know what, that statue of Nick Saban, I want you to get a mask of me and put it on it. Anyway, the other thing you said was, the lack of attendance. Look, maybe I'm overthinking this. Part of that can be explained to me. I think that people were like, hey, I got so much more going on in my life right now. There is, the stock market is both crashing and elevating to new heights every day. We don't know what's happening. There's political strife at home and abroad. Simpsons quote. There's all this stuff going on in life, and people were like, I really don't need to do an 8-day game this year. I need to take a break.
Yeah, it was a national thing too. It wasn't just attendance was terrible at Alabama. It was down across the nation as a whole. So it wasn't an Alabama thing. But I think some of it was format. Some of it was that too.
There's no doubt. We love you, FanDuel. You're the best. Thanks for being with us. NBA playoffs, they're here. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has had so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets. Oh, my gosh, that's amazing. Today, go to FanDuel.com. You'll love it. I'm saying it with emphasis so that you'll really go. Speaking of the NBA playoffs, we're not going to get into it, but there was a thing on Twitter. I swear to God, we used to say this all the time, and I felt like an old fogey back then. Now I really do. I have no idea what traveling is anymore. There's this new thing in the NBA where like you can almost switch pivot foots, and people are like, well, you're not really switching pivot foots. You're launching off the other foot. I'm like, no, that's just a travel. And I'm like, I'm okay if we're changing the rules, but don't tell me that's not a travel when it's so clearly a travel. And how are you supposed to defend that? You can't. If a guy has a ball and you are relegated defensively, you can't stop somebody who can just move wherever they want to. But anyway,
it's rugby.
It's so frustrating to me.
You can take more than 2 steps and carrying the ball. That's rugby or football.
Yeah, it's rugby. It really is. But okay, so let's wrap up some draft talk here quickly, and then we'll get into some talking about a couple of walk-on guys before we get into your roster countdown this year, which is always a lot of fun. And hey, by the way, it's a Locked On Bama exclusive this year.
Correct. You won't find that anywhere. Won't find that anywhere but here.
So wrapping up the draft, I thought Andrew Bone had a good little piece about guys that had a tie to Bama or left Alabama and where they wound up. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's interesting. Clay Webb, was he not the guy who did the Gatorade? Okay. Y'all know. Well, I'm not saying it. Allegedly. Okay. So he went undrafted. even though if he signed a undrafted contract or whatever. DeRicky Wright, I think he's from. Is he not from Utah, Alabama, or Eufaula? Is it Eufaula?
No. He's from. That's a good question.
It was
I'm
something.
Sure.
It was something EU.
I think Etowah. I don't think he's from Eufaula.
I thought it was Eufaula. And I said,
okay, we'll look it up. Anyway, he committed to Alabama at one point, I think, and then
he did, and then he ended up at Mississippi, and then he ended up at Vanderbilt, and he went undrafted. But I'll tell you something, I would have loved to have had DeRicky Wright on last year's team.
He's a good player. You know, a couple of these guys were good. Bone mentioned Jacori Brooks. That's another good player. He really was a good college player. Had a good year at Louisville. He had one good year at Alabama, and he had some injury problems. But I'm also the first to admit, I mean, because we talk about recruiting rankings all the time, he was a miss by the recruiting industry, by Alabama. I mean, that was not I think he was a 5-star by some services or some accounts. He was definitely not a 5-star type player, but he was good. You know, we have a tendency as fans, I think we all do this. I know I do this, and it's terrible. And since when someone comes in with high expectations and they're only good, we're like, oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
Instead of going, he's a pretty good player, Jacori Brooks. Yeah. But because he came in as like 5-star national top 10 or 15 player, we go, what's this? And that's on us. We shouldn't do that. He didn't ask to be a 5-star.
And we're not in the playoffs without his play against Auburn.
That's 100% true. And they should be appreciated for things like that. The first thing that come to mind, and again, I'm at fault for this. I'm not blaming anybody but me. Our first reaction shouldn't be, gosh, he was overrated. Our first reaction would be, heck of a catch against Auburn. Not in the playoff without it.
Yeah. Then he talks about some of the guys that were drafted that were associated with Bama. Quinshon Judkins, who Bama just never offered. I mean, look, they missed. They missed.
That was another miss. But I will point out, Tim Watts mentioned this in that discussion on BOL. I couldn't agree with Tim more. This type of speculation is dangerous.
Yeah.
But I would bet on it. Had Judkins signed with Alabama, he would have left.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. Well, he left where he signed with.
Yeah, he was a leaver.
But Alabama signed Jam Miller and Emmanuel Henderson, and
it was a miss. It was a miss. I mean, Judkins clearly a better, superior player to both. So,
I hate saying this. You could argue all three were misses. I'm not throwing Jam under the bus. I'm just saying, like, Jam is a miss compared to Quinshon Judkins. But
yes,
I will say this. I love Jam Miller.
He's still here.
I'm so excited about this potential this year. Please put it together. I think you can. Let's go do it. Me and you together against the world.
Agreed. He's still here, still working at it, and he's gone the circuitous route, as I call it. Probably overrated as a prospect. I think that's fair to say at this point. Fair. But now underrated as a player. I mean, he's a little better than what I read. And we're finally going to see him as he's experienced now in his first shot with more of a traditional running back role as opposed to last year, which I think ended up being very difficult on the backs.
We won't talk about this one, but I thought it was interesting. Luther Burden, who I loved as a prospect, apparently went to Bama's camp, and he didn't test, and he also didn't work out. And Alabama was like, well, we're not offering you that.
We passed on him. It's very, very Sabanish. I didn't really talk about it back then. I knew what had gone on. But, yeah, Burden came to camp. We were like, you got to come to Saban. You got to come to camp. He came to camp, but then didn't do what we wanted to see him do. So we're like, well, all right, then we won't take you. And, again, he proved at Missouri that he's a great player. And I think he went, round 2, I think.
You know what it is when it's Caddyshack when I can't forget, Panunzio or whatever his name was, went to Danny Noonan and was like, hey, I need a Coke. And he said, well, Lou had to up the price on the Cokes. They're 50 cents now. He said, I ain't paying 50 cents for no Coke. And then Danny Noonan said, well, you ain't getting no Coke. Nick Saban said, you ain't getting no Coke.
That's probably exactly. I bet Saban's a golf guy. He probably bought up the same movie.
It's Caddyshack, by the way. I don't know if I said that, but a lot of people probably don't know. If you hadn't seen by the way, Jimmy hadn't seen The Sopranos. I need to say that in every episode. Seen Caddyshack. So that somebody knocks some sense into you. I don't know what's worse, if you hadn't seen The Godfather or seen Sopranos. Honest to God,
it's so weird that they're both mob movies when I like mob movies.
Not seeing and you binge. That's the other weird thing is you binge stuff.
I do, and I got such a long list. See, it goes from just years of
put
being
Sopranos at the top of the list.
when I was a lawyer and
You
doing
can change
sports
the
work.
list.
When I was a lawyer and doing sports work, I just did, and watching sports on TV, I just sort of squeezed TV out. There was like a couple of decades I didn't watch TV much, and now I'm sort of making up for it in some sort of a loose order. Although no one's going to appreciate the order but me, and everyone's gonna be upset about the order in terms of why am I watching this instead of that. But it's just kind of impossible when you're trying to watch everything.
But yeah, if you hadn't,
I'm going to watch Sopranos. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to it. But I also need to watch some of this new stuff. See, I don't want to miss the new stuff.
No, you don't.
Paradise. Paradise is the next show I'm watching, by the way.
No.
Paradise is great. I hear good things.
Okay.
I hear good things about Sopranos too, but Paradise is
you
new.
Don't hear good things. It's just good things. All right. So yeah, but if you hadn't seen Caddyshack, go see it, or
I saw that.
Forever ignorant.
Saw that.
Not you. I'm talking about everybody else.
Yeah, but I did see that one.
So, and then, we talked about Mason Taylor. Nick Saban said it on the broadcast. Mason Taylor may have been the biggest misevaluation in Nick Saban's career. And
some recency bias.
That is definitely recency bias. But I'll say this. He's in the top 5.
It is amazing that Jason Taylor's son, Jason Taylor played for those, Nick Saban was Jason Taylor's coach at Miami. Not only Jason Taylor's coach, Jason Taylor was the NFL Player of the Year while Saban was his head coach. And Jason played that jack position, which was new to him because Saban came in, changed everything, built it around Jason. So the fact that Jason Taylor would have a son that went on to become a college star and a, let's say, first/second round pick. I think he went in the second round, but he was good enough to go in the first. It is kind of amazing that we missed that. That doesn't feel like one we should have missed on, but we did. We actually took other tight ends, and he was a strong maybe for us the whole time, but never we got to get this guy. That was a mistake.
It's worse in the sense that he caught a game-winning touchdown against us.
Salt in the wound.
It's also Saban, both the brilliance and his number one flaw. He wasn't going to waste a scholarship on anybody that just because they had some kind of connection to him or to Alabama. He was going to do it his way, and he was like, look, if Bear Bryant's great-grandson was coming through, well, I guess he did. His grandson came through, right? Or a great-grandson. Paul Tyson, which one was he? Grandson or
great-grandson?
Great-grandson. So, but Paul Tyson was good, so that's a bad example. But if, let's say that, there was some huge booster who, I'll tell you this, I'll give you an example. Boy, I got to get to the next break. But I know that Mike Hennig, I don't know, Hennig Furs in Montgomery, great dude. I've met him, super dude, big Auburn guy, huge Auburn guy.
Son was a quarterback.
Yeah, his son was a quarterback, and Auburn, Tommy Tuberville, I think, decided not to offer him, and he ended up going to Mississippi State and having a decent career.
Yeah, he started games. Started games.
And but I remember thinking, what a mistake, because at the time, I think, of course, that family sort of, oh gosh, I'm not on my microphone. That family sort of shifted to Mississippi State for the time being. I was thinking, what a mistake. I mean, you would offer Mike Hennig's son no matter what, right? I mean, just because. I mean, he's a huge booster. He's been a pro Auburn guy, and he's won scholarship. But now that I think back, I guess if Tommy Tuberville's doing it his way, I guess that's the way to do it. But I would still say, for 25 scholarships or whatever, that's what I would do. And anyway, that's just what I'm saying. Nick Saban had the same sort of philosophy. Like, I don't care if you're the son of the biggest booster that Alabama has. If you're not good enough to play here, I ain't helping you out. Yeah. So anyway, I kind of get that. Game Time. Boy, can I say enough good things about Game Time? It's like the Sopranos of ticket apps.
I wouldn't know.
Jimmy wouldn't know. So, but
although I do know about Game Time.
Use code Locked On College for $20 off that first purchase. Now, look, I'm going to say this again. I've told you I've used it for NFL, NBA, college basketball, college football, college baseball, concerts, everything, right? But the $20 off your first order, that's great. Okay. And $20 is $20, but it's not what's going to bring you back. And that's the best testament I can tell you is it's not the $20 is the best price guaranteed. Is this seeing where you're going to be seated? It's the view you're going to get. It's also the customer service, which I've had to use personally. I wouldn't say this if I hadn't had to use it. I've had to use their customer service because of my screw up, and they helped me. And it wasn't like they were like, okay, that's an extra $10. They were like, they couldn't be any more helpful, and they were expeditious. I think that's a word. I can't remember. So if I hope it's a good one, and I hope it means that they were fast and courteous, because they were. So GameTime, go check them out. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off that first order. All right, we're getting into the time of the season where Jimmy's going to do his roster countdown.
Ranking, kind of a roster ranking. We rank the roster, like it starts with this idea: who's the best player on the team this fall? Who's the best player? And everybody's got an opinion. I think a lot of people just shouted out Ryan Williams, and maybe Ryan is number one. I haven't completed the rankings. I've just started on them. Take a lot of time with, but I rank the roster. Like, who's the best player? Okay, then who's the second best player? Who's the third best player? And I do it all the way down to 82. I think we got roughly 82 guys on scholarship right now. So I
think we got 84 now.
Okay, I'll recount
because of the two
we added. Yeah, I'll recount. But I do from 1 all the way down, and then we'll start on when it's let's say it's 84. If Luke's right, it's 84. Then 84 days from the start of fall camp, we'll spend a day. We'll send a segment on that player, and if we get behind because of a weekend or whatever, then we'll do 2. But I just thought, and since we're still about a little less than 2 weeks away from starting that we would spend some time talking about some of the better walk-ons on the team, because I think soon, post-house settlement, walk-ons may be going away. And y'all might be surprised to learn, when I put this list of walk-ons together, that these guys are contributors or potential contributors this season. And I'm also running this risk. To be honest, I don't track the portal for walk-ons. So if we accidentally discuss a player that entered the portal, sorry about that. We'll try to confirm beforehand, but I believe these guys we're discussing are still here. But some of our better walk-ons, like Nolan Asbury, would have topped this list. I think he was the best walk-on the team. Asbury's probably deserving of a scholarship to Alabama. He got in the portal. I'm not sure where he signed, but Nolan Asbury is a good football player, and I hope he picked a place where he can start. Even if that's at the FCS level. But man, he's a good football player. But today we're going to talk about 2 DBs, and they're from my area, so I happen to know them pretty well. But they've contributed already to Alabama. I'm talking about Jay Loper, who's a senior, and by senior I mean he's going into year 4, all 4 years at Alabama, and Kolby Peavey, who's going into year 3 at Alabama. But these guys are contributors, believe it or not. I know most of you have never heard the names, but Loper was a prospect from Bayside Academy in Daphne that I was very aware of. He's a good player, slash player in high school, played quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive back, and was a pretty dominant high school player at the lower level. I thought Jay Loper would sign with an FCS type school, maybe even a South Alabama type. I thought he was a contender to do that, but comes from a family, I think, of Alabama supporters, and chose to just walk on at Alabama instead. Jay Loper's entering year 4. He actually played in 2 games last year. He played against Western Kentucky and Mercer. And you're like, well, of course they empty the bench. But no, not everybody gets to play. But he played in 2 games years ago. And as a matter of fact, to show how DeBoer crosses T's and dots I's, Jay Loper was a scout team player of the week against Western Kentucky and Mercer, then was rewarded for that by being placed in the game at the end. So this is a guy the staff obviously appreciates. If you're a scout team player of the week, Jay Loper's a DB, very versatile, he's fast, good hands. But he actually plays wide receiver at Alabama. He was actually spent a lot of time in high school playing DB, wide receiver at Alabama, not a DB. That's Kolby Peavey. But Jay has played in games, has yet to catch a ball. I won't be shocked to see him catch a ball this year. Kolby Peavey is the DB. He's from Excel High School. Another guy I was aware of in recruiting at 6'1", 190. I thought he would sign with an FCS school or some sort of lower level FBS school, but he chose to walk on at Alabama. He's a year younger than Jay. He's entering year 3, but even though he's in year 3, check out what Kolby Peavey has done. He also played against Western Kentucky and Mercer last year. Dude made a tackle against Western Kentucky. He's credited with a tackle in that game. So he's not only played, he dented the stat sheet. He was a scout team player of the week like Jay Loper, but Kolby Peavey was a scout team player of the week, LSU week. So for the LSU preparation, the coaches noticed his play on the practice field, felt he did a good job helping prepare our team play against LSU, and obviously the team played well that week. So Kolby Peavey plays DB, Jay Loper's on offense, but watch for Kolby Peavey to possibly get in games. We're not deep at defensive back. I do think it's conceivable that we'll see Kolby. And let me tell you, this guy should have signed with the 4-year school and scholarship out of high school. I remember him at Excel and at 6'1", 190. I'm like, well, that dude's probably playing college football, but he is at Alabama.
And of course, I say this all the time, Excel High School is the former school of one Leroy Jordan, who I'm kind of related to.
Yeah. Every time you mention that,
I mention it all the time because it's about all I've got.
It needs to be. I had a distant cousin one time tell me, a distant cousin of mine, I'm not even sure how we're related, but we are. She told me that we are related to Harry Connick Jr. I've always remembered that. I have no idea how.
There's 0% chance.
I have no idea, but she was.
We're all related. We're all related.
No, she knew
type way.
I said when she told me that, I'm like, hey, I'm the kind of guy. We need to sit down over beers and you draw this out, because I will text him and ask him for tickets to a show. Hey, it's your cousin Jimmy. You know me.
It's just other weird stuff. I'll tell you this. Easter was on April 20th this year, right? Okay. So Easter was on April 20th. My dad's birthday is on April 20th. Also, Hitler's birthday is April 20th. It was a very weird Sunday. Dad was like, yeah.
Sincerely hope you're celebrating 2 of those 3 things.
2 of them.
2 of them.
We celebrated. I'll let you think which one. Oh, God. But yeah, that's well, you talk about having a bad same birthday.
Yeah, that's a tough birthday. That's a tough birthday.
If you look up birthdays and you're like, oh man, look at this. Because I have the same birthday as Johnny Carson. But if it was also like you have the same birthday as Johnny Carson and Jeffrey Dahmer, I was like, oh, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, just knowing Hitler's birthday. I didn't know until you just said that. Thankfully, I didn't know it Hitler's birthday.
It's also Barney's from The Simpsons, because Homer Simpson once said he couldn't remember Marge's birthday. He's like, I know Barney's is this April 20th, the same as Hitler.
Isn't 420 the dope day?
420 is also the dope day.
The dope day, because 420, the kids call marijuana 420. So it's
also, I don't think they call it dope anymore.
I call it dope because I'm old.
Yeah, I know.
I don't say groovy, but I
call them boobies. That's how old I am.
That's even older.
All right. That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.